When I came back to this barren town, the streets sang louder than my dying years. Stalking the moon across the night, pen and paper let my tongue unwind. To be charmed, learning how to stay in the barn. Every latch calls out to me, throw your legs off my balcony. Growing pains, the thickened skin grew rings around my heart each year. The tighter bands were bitter hills.
Courtney Swain is the singer of the band Bent Knee, a very interesting rock band based in Boston. And Courtney and the band have just returned from a European tour. Courtney, how did all of that go?
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wanted you to say more. No, it was just amazing. That's all I want to say. It was fantastic.
Awesome. And Courtney, you've got a relatively new solo album out called Growing Pains that I'm several months late to, but I don't feel so bad because I know that you've mentioned before that there's like no press after an album is released, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, here we are. Tell us about the album Growing Pains. When did it come out? And tell us a little about it.
Sure, yeah. So I put Growing Pains out in November of 2017. And it was something that, it was a collection of 5 songs that I was working on at the beginning of 2017. So right about a little over a year ago. And actually, literally last year at this time, I was doing a residency. I was awarded a grant to basically have 2 weeks to myself. And I applied with this project where I wanted to write an album that was very much on my laptop and sort of an in-the-box kind of thing. And I knew I was going to write a bunch of new music there. So before I did that, I wanted to sort of get all these piano songs in my head out of the way. The way I write, I tend to have sets of songs that are very much, piano-centric. And then I have songs that are way more sort of, beeps and bloops kind of, I wrote it on my laptop kind of songs. So Growing Pains is the piano songs. And I took the album on my first solo tour in December, last December. And I, for some reason, had not realized that all the songs are kind of connected. They're all growing pains of some sort. And I was completely oblivious when I named the album Growing Pains. It's just a line in one of the songs that I liked. But yeah, so it's kind of it's a dark album. It's kind of painful. After I recorded it, I put it away for a while. And I was so busy with the Bent Knee release for Land Animal that I didn't listen to it at all. And so after about 7 or 8 months after the studio date, I went back and listened to it, and I listened to the songs in succession. And when I got to the last song, I was just crying uncontrollably. Like it's rare that I've had such a breakdown in my life like that. And it really struck me how much the music meant to me, and it seemed like way too personal for it to be relevant to anybody else. So I hesitated in whether I should put it out or not, but I kind of tried to stick with that gut feeling that I had that made me so emotional, and I thought that there's something to that I wanted to share with like the people who listen to my stuff. So yeah, that's the story behind that.
I am so happy you did, because what an amazing piece of music. Every song that went by, I was like, this is my favorite song on the album. And then the next one was like, oh my goodness, this is even better than the last one. And then that last song, Prickly Rose, right?
Prickly Thorn, yeah.
A Prickly Thorn. Oh my goodness. It's like darkness and the vocals and the string arrangements, and it's just incredible. What a body of work.
Thank you.
And the fact that it's only 24 minutes long is like, you just want to put it on again right away.
Awesome.
Burrowed in the warmth of your arms, the sweetest place I've ever known. Close our eyes and we'll be alone, and I'll stop twisting the knife now. I've never felt like God, safe for when I reaped your tears, welling up in sockets, a small electric storm.
Yeah, it's really great. So tell us about the string arrangements and the production of the album, because I was really impressed. Beyond just like your capabilities, the whole production, I think, is just a perfect piece of work. So tell us about the production of it and the arrangements and all of that.
Well, thank you. First of all, I really appreciate that. The production was masterminded yet again by Vince Welch, who does all the Bentley stuff, and so far has done most of my work too. We found this wonderful studio in Lincoln, Rhode Island. We live in Providence, but Lincoln's about 20 minutes away. And we heard about it through friends, and the guy who runs it is this wonderful person about our age. He's just the most fun and patient engineer that I've ever worked with. His name's Brad. And the space is really neat. It's a huge room. It's one of those repurposed warehouses. So the live room is massive. And there's a couple different pianos there. And when we showed up to record, Brad was really excited because he just had a bunch of his pianos tuned. You know, I think we ended up using 2 different pianos on the album. There's an upright and then there's a grand. But one of the funny stories was that we recorded in January, and the room being so big, in order to heat it, you had to turn on this big Resner heating apparatus. So between takes, the temperature would kind of drop. So as the day progressed, the pianos would gradually go in and out of tune, and but I a lot of times when I show up to a piano, people will, be like, oh my God, is the tuning okay? But I'm actually one to be really excited for pianos that are out of tune, unless they're like unplayable. But I have a pretty like broad palette in terms of like quirkiness and tuning, so that was pretty exciting for me. The string arrangements were something I worked on the previous few weeks before I came into that. The string players that we worked with were kind of all our friends. Most of them have played on at least 1 or 2 Bentley albums as well. And I brought them in because I wanted to work with sort of a female energy. So they were all sort of women, and so it was kind of fun being in the live room. We were just like having a ball. A lot of times I end up hanging out with a lot of guys in my profession, which I don't mind at all. But there's also something special to having an environment like that that's filled with women. I can't really explain it. thought they just played their hearts and souls into it, and it was really emotional the entire time we were tracking. We did most of it in one day, so I got there early, and I did keeper piano takes and scratch vocals. Oh, sorry, my cat wants to say hi. Hello, everybody. And this was the first time I tracked the piano and the singing separately. I think originally we were talking about doing it together, but I was really interested in having a really intimate and really sort of raw kind of vocal sound. And when I'm playing piano while I'm singing, I tend to get carried away by the piano, or I tend to compete with the loudness of the piano, so I can't get as quiet or intimate as I want to. So that was the idea behind that. So I showed up early in the day, tracked the piano, did like a scratch vocal take, and then the string players showed up around noon or 1, and they just kind of played until 6 or 7, and I think we mostly went in order of the songs. There's only 4 of the 5 songs have strings, so we kind of just went in order. But at the end of the last song, all 4 of them are really wonderful singers on top of wonderful instrumentalists, and I think we were like trying to explain or trying to figure out how the parts were working or something, but then I realized everybody was singing their parts, and it just sounded gorgeous in this massive room. So it was like, wait, why don't we just do that, you know? Can we just have that at the end where we have this like wonderful choir? And that's how the ending came together. And I ended up having to go in for an extra half day to track vocals at the studio, a big nice studio. But that was it. So it was a very minimal production. And then just Vince kind of did his magic, and we had it mastered by Randy, who again does a lot of our stuff. So it's kind of like same crew, you know, different approach. But yeah.
I'll be content just to know that it could be so hard, that it could be so hard if you're not waiting, baited, breathing by the telephone. Well, I hope at least you're having some fun. I decided late last night that I'd rather be alone. If I can't be with you, I'd rather be alone.
I absolutely love it, and it's such a, as you said, like an intimate album. There were times when I was listening where I almost felt like guilty, you know, like listening, like hearing too much about your life or something. But then I was like, no, that's exactly what this is about. It's a stunning like release of emotions, and the music just so perfectly supports it. And I wanted to hear a little bit about how you wrote these songs, because they don't really follow the traditional structure, as far as I could tell, at least. Like, you're not verse, chorus, bridge kind of happening in the album. So can you talk about how you explore songwriting and how these songs came to be from a compositional standpoint?
Yeah, of course. I think these songs sort of came at the end of like my maximalist writing interests. Like right now I am very interested in what I think is minimalist writing, by which I mean I'm trying to get more out of the same chord progressions, but making that feel different by timbre and texture. So for me, when in my writing, which is the case for Growing Pains too, I tend to, when I switch a section, I have to change the accompaniment completely too. But I've noticed that in a lot of music, people will approach it way more economically, where even if the chords are the same, they can actually change the feel by adding different instruments or changing a texture or changing the vocal line. So that's what I'm interested in now, but at the time when I wrote Growing Pains, it was just sort of, I think it's kind of in almost a contemporary classical vein. Like Prickly Thorn is the last song I wrote on the album. Again, the way the album is structured, there's gradually more strings as the songs progress, and also the order of the songs are roughly in the order that they were written to. And I listened to Joni Mitchell's Blue really recently, I'm ashamed to admit, and I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do, you know? It's kind of like, so I've listened to a fair amount of Joni Mitchell. I'm now like Joni Mitchell expert. But actually, funny story, Bentley did a Halloween show once where we covered Joni Mitchell exclusively. I might have told you this, but we had a Joni Mitchell Halloween. So I know like enough of her music, and I love Hejira. So I think that was a big influence I was pulling from for Growing Pains. And compositionally, I do like to stray away from the verse chorus thing, but it's not always a conscious thing. I think in my own writing and also in Bentley, what's happening is that we tend to have extended and very complicated bridge sections. So what you would call like a C kind of section, you know, because it's usually A, B, C, B, right? You know, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. And so the bridge is always complicated. That's the case in the first song. The second song also has a weird bridge. Third song also has a weird bridge. Fourth song is a little bit different. It's just more of like extended chorusy bridge. The fifth song, Prickly Thorn, is just like, it's craziness, you know? I did a really cool session in Brooklyn where there's a guy who has an old sort of direct 2-mix to vinyl machine. So you just play in a studio. Actually, it's not even a 2-mix, it's in mono. So you play in this like tiny room, and he cuts it directly to a 7-inch. So like if you want to make 5 7-inches, you have to play the song 5 times, because everyone is different. So anyways, we were prepping for this session, and I'd asked Chris Baum, Bethany's violin player, to play with me, and we were talking about Prickly Thorn, and I was trying to write down a form for him so that it would be easier to follow, because we just had one rehearsal, and Chris is just a genius at going with the flow in terms of like improvising and playing with people. So I was like, okay, Chris, so there's A, B, C, A, D. You know, I was just like going, and I'm like, oh my god, this makes no sense. This is so not helpful. And I don't know how I ended up at that. But I remember sort of cutting sections and pasting sections and being like, well, this feels too long, this feels too short. And it somehow ended up like that. Yeah.
The air between our lips grew into thicket. I took your thumb and pricked it on a thorn in my side, just to remind myself of the taste of love, just to remind myself. All the good times saved in a piggy bank. I smashed the glass on the floor so we could rummage and nick our toes.
So how was the touring experience? I mean, these vocal performances are really raw and very powerful. Was that an emotional experience for you, or did you go deeper in as you toured, or did it become more casual, like, yeah, I can do this, you know?
I think a little bit of both. It was kind of nice not to do tour by myself. It was sort of it affirmed something I've had for a thought I've had for a long time about how taxing bent knee is on my voice, because if I'm singing by myself, I'm not really competing with that much sound. So, you know, when I'm on bent knee tour, I don't drink at night. I'm just like basically chugging water all day, every day. And so on solo tour, it was like, oh, I can have a drink once in a while. You know, it's like really nice. But in terms of the delivery, I really loved doing that tour for a lot of reasons. I did it with my college freshman year roommate, who's a singer-songwriter in LA. And so it was just like, I kept joking about how, like, worst case, this is just going to be a girls' road trip. And then best case, it's going to be, like, a couple shows that are great. But I had this, for me, really profound realization where I gained a lot of confidence in what I was doing. In the beginning, I would go into these shows and I felt like I had something to prove. And actually, before the tour, I had a couple of these shows and I would listen back to the audio and I would just feel kind of unsatisfied. And I couldn't understand why, because in terms of the accuracy of the performance, it was good. The tempos were good, the notes were right, but it just didn't feel quite right. And I realized that I was leaning too far into it, and I had to come out of it a little bit, and just kind of let the music breathe and be myself instead of like trying to like push. And I think it's something that I've heard people talk about a lot. Like I took this really expensive vocal lesson a couple years ago because I was having a hard time like managing my voice in certain rough sections of bent knee. And the guy was like, you have to create the sound of you going all in, but you can't actually be going all in. And it was kind of like I finally understood what that meant, because when I did actually sort of kind of like get really emotional and like, you know, when your brain is like 100% like, ah, I didn't sound the way I wanted it to sound. And so I learned to sort of draw this line in my performance where I saw it as this thing. And it wasn't less satisfying in any way. It was more satisfying ultimately because I knew it was coming across the right way. But I also learned a lot about like stage presence and anxiety. Like there's not a lot of points in Bent Knee's live set where we talk. We normally don't really talk that much because we do seamless transitions between songs, and we usually like say hi once during the set. But I found out that didn't really work when it was just me and the piano and a solo set, and I had to talk in between stuff. And I realized that I had this anxiety or this nervousness that was selfish. Like I was ratcheting myself up to be like anxious, so when I talk I'd be like, thank you for coming, you know, I'd talk really fast and really intense, and I just realized like this is not doing anybody a service. Like it's not doing me a service, it's not doing anybody like who's watching. It's not fun. And so I learned that I just kind of have to be confident in that I have something to say that's worth listening to. So I started talking slower, and I started talking more at my normal talking volume, and I realized it was just a way better way to communicate. And so I started introducing each song before I would play it, because I'd found that when I would not introduce all the songs, when I would finish my set, people would come up to me and they would tell me that their favorite song was the one that I introduced. And it wasn't always the same song. It was whatever song I introduced and I gave a background to. People seemed to enjoy it more. So I was like, okay, well, if that's a thing, I should just do it for all my songs. And yeah, it just kind of was a real growing process for me, where I had to commit to doing this thing instead of like, how like when somebody's really good at something, sometimes they're bad at taking a compliment. And I think I was that way for a really long time, and this was like something where I realized me not being able to take that compliment was actually harming my art more than doing it a service.
Have you heard of the imposter syndrome?
No. Oh yeah, I think my
interesting.
therapist told me about that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of that. It's a real personal struggle that talented people have to overcome. And I think what you're talking about is basically that.
Yeah, and I've it was a really amazing experience, like night after night doing the same thing. It really makes you sort of evaluate how you can do better, because otherwise it's just kind of
like the candle at both ends, raise the voices till they soar, hearts lift to the sky, they're the deities. From the rubble of your corpse, I'll choose only the best. Somewhere inside there's a wishbone, I'll take it in my hand, tread the miles through the grass, look out to the sea, there your spirit is free.
So I sent the album to a friend of mine, and he fell in love with it instantly.
Oh, awesome.
And he said, she's gotta know about Ryuichi Sakamoto. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What does he have any sort of influence or bearing on what you do?
No, I know of him.
Okay.
Only because I'm half Japanese. But I think in a way probably I'm working on this project where, I've had a couple projects recently where I've been asked to introduce like my tracks and what influenced me, and they are completely obscure to a lot of Western listeners because they're basically like J-pop tracks, right? So I think Ryuichi Sakamoto is a fixture in Japanese music, so I think a lot of J-pop and sort of Japanese music that I was listening to growing up takes from that, and so I think I'm kind of in the line of his music, even if I don't have a direct correlation with it. Yeah.
Okay, and this summer you and Bent Knee will be on tour. Can you share a little bit, do a little Bent Knee promo?
Yeah, so we're going on the Paper Earth tour. We're starting last week of May, like right after week of Memorial Day, and we're going clockwise this year. We normally go counterclockwise, but all around America. And I'm really excited this year. We're going out with this band called Gathers. They're on Equal Vision, and they have a new album coming out. It hasn't been announced yet, but they're really, really fun folks. They stayed at my house once, and I'm really good friends with the guitar player Anthony, and this is our first summer where we're doing our entire long-ass tour with other people. So it'll be interesting. I'm sure there will be like real highs and real lows, as there is to every long tour. But we're really excited. We've been writing some new music in the studio, so we might be playing some of that out. And we also just premiered a piece that we wrote for Bent Knee and percussion ensemble. And that half an hour sort of through composed piece is called Paper Earth, which is where the name of the tour came from. So we haven't figured out if we're gonna play any of the sort of the snippets or the small song kind of things of Paper Earth as part of the tour. I think it's quite possible. But yeah, it's, every year we do this, and it's like something that I really look forward to in my life. So I'm excited to go out on tour again.
Yeah, and you guys are coming to Phoenix in June, so I rearranged my vacation schedule so I could make the show.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
yes.
So we will be there, and I'm super excited to finally see you guys live, so that'll be awesome. All right, so for people who want to find out more and to support you in the best ways possible, can you share where to get that information and what they can do?
Yeah, I'm really easy to find online, as well as the band. I'm also starting a Patreon. I don't know if I'll have it booted by the time this interview comes out or not, but it will just be at patreon.com/Courtney Swain. And so that's a place, if you want, where you can sort of pledge a monthly amount and get access to basically my blog. Is a kind of a short way of talking about it. But I was having a conversation with Bentley's guitar player, Ben, last night, and we were talking about how for a long time we've drawn this line between the band and us as people. So for example, Ben's drawn this line between his incredibly successful YouTube channel and the band. And for me, I've also I've always felt like a meh moment when people call me Courtney Swain of Bentley as opposed to, just Courtney Swain. But we were sort of agreeing about how that's not the point anymore. And it's just about like all of us doing all of this together. So anyway, long story short, it would be a place for like what I'm doing, but also a lot of just my point of view of what we're doing in Bentley. I'm hoping to talk about sort of my keyboard parts in Bentley, or sort of the story behind songs, whether it be Bentley stuff or my stuff. I'm going to do a book club where we'll just be listening to an album every 2 weeks, so hang out and talk about it. So it'll be kind of a fun place to hang out if anybody's interested. But otherwise, I'm also at CourtneySwain.com, as well as bentleymusic.com, and yeah.
And do you have any physical copies of the Growing Pains album left?
I do, yeah. I have some left. I pressed them at a local letter pressing company, so they're beautifully pressed, and it's a limited run. I always do limited runs for a lot of stuff, like a lot of the first edition Bentley stuff for the first and second album had limited runs, and I'm just hoping one of these days that they'll hold value on eBay. We'll find out. I don't know how many more years it's going to take, but hang on to those copies.
Well, save me a couple. I'm definitely going to buy some.
I certainly will. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Courtney. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about your music.
Thank you, Anthony. It's always a pleasure.
Growing pains, the thickened skin grew rings around